Okay, I would like to call this meeting of February 13th to order. Can we stand for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Throwing things at you, man. Oh my God. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Can we have roll call?
Chair Pekin,
Here?
Vice Chairman Elga,
Here.
Zerl, Bielfeld,
Here.
Caldwell,
Here.
Knizik,
Here.
Wicker, Student Representative Bowling.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Can we have agenda approval?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on to unscheduled public comment. Seeing none, may I have approval of the minutes for the January 9th meeting?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no unfinished business, we'll move on to new business. We would like to discuss and make a recommendation on the city's approved lease application for ENA LLC for lots 5A and 5B FOB subdivision number 10 for the use of the fuel service fixed base operator. So do we have any comment from you, from our airport manager?
Yeah, I have a staff report.
Okay,
So this is
I guess I should have had it.
They submitted a land use application for lots 5A and 5B, and what they want to do with this is put $3 million of improvements for a 45-year lease on it, and they want it to be an FBO.
A recommendation in a second.
Move to recommend.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I guess I'm just curious with that. So their only service they're intending to provide right now is fuel. Is that it at this point?
That's all that they said for sure, but they are looking at services. They looked into the de-icing stuff. I just don't know if they're
Okay, yeah, I guess my biggest concern seeing this is we've got this lot that was designated to be the FBO for the airport right next to the terminal, that we just had all those trees cleared and everything else over the last couple of years prior to COVID. It's really the ideal location for an actual FBO next to the terminal. And so if this goes through and we've got another fuel provider besides Crowley, for an FBO to come in and utilize that land that's already been cleared, that's really the designated location for an FBO on the field. If that's not the one they're looking for, which it looks like this is, they're looking for further north on North Willow on this.
Yeah.
That if someone wanted to come try and now use that space that's already been cleared, that's already been designated for the FBO, that they're going to be competing with an Everts fuel service, a Crowley fuel service. So trying to have 3 fuel services on the field, I think, is pretty ridiculous, but that is a primary source of income for an FBO. So I guess my biggest concern seeing this is that we're looking at another FBO type service that's not using space that really doesn't have application outside of an FBO next to the terminal there.
This is not next to the terminal.
Correct, I understand that. No, I'm talking about the lot that's next to the terminal that was cleared by SOAR International to build an FBO. that has all the ramp space that's designated as FBO ramp.
Yeah. And they did put that they want to do maintenance as well, sorry.
Okay. So yeah, so I guess it's just kind of interesting to see, and I guess I'd be curious as to why they're looking at that land up there versus the land that's already had all of the dirt work done that saves them hundreds of thousands of dollars that's next to the terminal right now. Unless maybe that lease is still currently active and if that was available to them.
It's available, it's just, that was their preference.
Yeah, so I guess that's my biggest concern is what the airport's gonna then use that land for that was already preferenced and cleared and has a lot of reasons that should be where the FBO is versus moving it further north. So I think having Everett's come in and do something is great. My question is just why we're looking that far north on a lot versus a lot that's really been already prepped, pre-designated, pre-planned to be an FBO.
Okay. If I could interject, I mean, what we're looking at is the lease here specifically, if it's appropriate and an aviation use, what they're looking to do, as opposed to discussion about where else they should be. It's really about this particular parcel.
And I do understand that's the question is looking at that parcel, but my question is because of that, what does that do to the parcel that's already designated? Because that parcel has already been prepped to be an FBO and was already, according to all of the language within city lease documents, was the preferred location for an FBO on the field.
Ed?
Yeah, that's good points. I don't know if that'll be enough room. Do you know, I haven't looked on the KPB Borough website. I don't remember anything saying that is a designated spot for an FBO. Personally, I don't remember anything that, I mean, it is a good location, and I know that's what they wanted it for, but I don't remember it being designated as such.
The reason that I would say that it's designated as such, it's the only single airplane, if you look at the entire airport plat, there is only one location that has a separate lease for any of the apron. So there's a lease area that's actually designated in front of that. So the ramp space that's currently used for transient in that section is the only place that's actually been platted as a leasable section of that. All of the rest of the apron right now is just one giant piece of land. That was the one section that was designated as a leasable portion of apron with the intent of the lot adjacent to it being an FBO. So that's where I see that. That's where I'm seeing that, I guess, is mostly because it's the only place that there was a ramp space designated to be FBO apron versus everything else is wide open.
Well, thinking of 4.5 acres, I don't know what size that lot is over there, but if they want to put a tank farm there too, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you probably know more about this than I do, but it just seems like if you want to have a place where you can have a lot of activity, as far as like a physical plant goes, that would be good for an FBO size like MARC, that type of thing. But if you're looking at a tank farm, and I was envisioning C-46s, DC-6s, that sort of stuff, and that's where normally when we had a lot of operations up here, that's where they parked their aircraft, out of the way, which to me would be good. I don't have to be having a bunch of airplanes, although it would be good for a tourist to go out there and see a C-46 and DC-6 up close. But and then also I remember, and I don't know why I was talking with Henry about that earlier. We're unrelated. We weren't like talking airport business, but we were going to go fly, but I ended up grounding the airplane. So another Minelga pre-flight. I remember. And Glenda, you might remember, we moved that property line on that second parcel. That property line was moved. The southern border of the south parcel, we moved that as an airport commission. Actually, I shouldn't say as an airport commission. We were asked to consider, recommend moving that line. I don't remember if it made that lot bigger or smaller. I think it made it bigger, or maybe the same size, all those three lots, were the same size. So that's that. And then the other part is that the question separate from this discussion was as far as the Forestry Service and having their tanker operation there, leasing the ramp space is there any potential for conflict there, do you think, for them leasing ramp space and also having that activity there for Everett's?
I don't think so. I
No?
think they can work together.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess my concern, I mean, obviously having an FBO here is huge. If it happens all the way down there, that's great. My biggest concern is just then what's the intent of the land next to the terminal there? Because that was originally designated for that, and it's gonna be hard to find a whole lot of great use for that space right there next to the terminal that's really constricted by the current transient parking situation. So do we lose the value of that land next to the terminal if we open up an FBO on the other side? Especially if that FBO isn't providing full services of, we have a need here. We have a lot of, every summer, we have a ton of private aircraft that come in and park in our transient location that don't have the typical FBO services of having a nice lobby, having fuel service, having lavatory service, water service. And so I think the location next to the terminal right now is where we were intending to have something like that. If we're gonna have another FBO on the field, but they're only talking about fuel and maybe maintenance, but maintenance wasn't referenced in the documentation, just what that looks like for the airport if that limits the ability of another FBO to come in and provide traditional FBO services once we have now 2 providers instead of 1 for fuel on the field with this discussion, if we can support a 3rd provider, which is again generally a very primary revenue source for one of those FBOs that now if we have 2 providers, they couldn't compete. So it'd make it a lot harder for someone to come in and provide traditional FBO services.
So maybe our other question is can we even support a traditional FBO at this point? I mean, I don't know.
That's kind of a business decision, though, based on them. I mean, they're looking to lease the property and build a hangar.
I think you ought to really be,
I'm
happy.
my suggestion would be talking about the issue here, if this is a lease lot, these lots that we have, we have an application in, is it an appropriate use? Because it is a lease lot, and they're not designated as anything other than lease lots, frankly, but, or Derek can probably clarify any of that. And this is really what we're looking at, not any other particular parcel. Not that that couldn't be part of your discussion, of course, but it's, the issue before you is this particular lease for those lots.
Do we have any other comments from other commissioners? Can we have a vote?
Chair Fekin,
I say yes.
Vice Chairman Elga,
Affirmative, yes.
Zerl, oh, sorry, not here. Bielfeld,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Knizik,
Yes.
Wicker,
Yes.
and Student Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on, can I have a recommendation on accepting a donation of a taxidermy polar bear and brown bear for display in the airport terminal?
Move to recommend.
Second.
Thank you. Any report from staff?
Yeah, this is kind of exciting. So we've had a polar bear and a brown bear in the terminal, and it has been since 2014. And so it was on a 10-year lease to be in the airport. So we reached out to them and asked if they wanted to extend that for another 10 years or what they wanted, and their preference is that they'd like to donate that to the airport instead. So the approximate value of the polar bear is $25,000 and the brown bear $15,000. And the airport would like to accept that donation. So does commission recommend council approve accepting a polar bear and brown bear donation from the Warren E. Johnson Estate for display in the Kenai Municipal Airport Terminal?
Okay, any discussion?
First of all, I'm not sure where 2014 came from. Those have been there since I was a kid. And
I had that from the last lease, that's.
yeah, it must be just the
So
length of the last
I
lease.
put at least.
And I'm so enthusiastic about this, I cannot imagine losing them from the airport. We absolutely should approve that.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing no objection, I'm looking for unanimous consent. Okay, thank you. Okay, looking for recommendations on the fire extension of the, first extension of the security guard services.
Move to recommend.
Second.
Okay, can we have a staff report?
Yeah, last year on February 29th, the city of Kenai entered into an agreement for security guard services with Guardian Security Services. And it's for 1 year with 4 one-year renewals. So we're bringing that back for another year renewal under the same terms and condition. Does commission recommend council approve this first extension to the agreement for security guard services with Guardian Security Systems Incorporated?
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, comments? Seeing, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask Derek if they've been doing, seems like they're doing a really good job. You guys are really happy with the service they're providing so far on that?
Yeah, we're happy with them. They leave us reports from the night that they're every night 12 to 4, and we haven't had any issues with them. They do their job and do what they're supposed to do, so we like to keep using them versus have to go out for somebody else that doesn't know the area.
Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I'm looking for unanimous consent, please. Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports. What else does our airport manager have for us?
I just want to give an update on some of the things that have been happening over the last month. So, Aleutian Airlines did give a letter of intent, and they want to plan on coming in here June through September to start off, and hopefully that expands to year-round. I'm gonna guess Henry's gonna talk more about this, but there's some donations for the Bronze Bears, so I'll leave that up to you. We had our master plan meeting. That was fun. There was good attendance, approximately 25-30 people. That includes staff, but glad to see people show up for that, and we'll have another one in June. This month, we've also been working on our wildlife permits. We have to update those every year, so Sarah does a lot of work on that. We have to keep a record of everything that we haze throughout the year and reapply for that permit. So we got those federal permits back, and the state one should follow, but glad to get that information done. And then the restaurant, they're hoping to open up in early March, so that's what we're shooting for. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Not much from my report. Came to the first public planning meeting, pretty much what I expected. And hope to see you guys at other ones as we move along if you can. So we'll ask our liaison, Mr. Nackstead, to comment.
Thank you, Chairman Feakin. I was just making a couple of notes there. Before I forget, I was just reminded that you probably all got an invite from the clerk for a parliamentary education meeting and dinner, and thank you and all that. And I believe that's on February 24th at 5 o'clock or 5:30 at the visitor center. So if you can make it, you make it early, you can at least eat. But at any rate, there'll be some good stuff after that. Once you get there, you'll want to stay, I'm sure. And getting back to the other discussion you had, if you have any questions about, leasing or whatever, Derek, I'm sure can help. But, it could be an attorney question or something like that. And Scott Bloom and the city manager also have their doors wide open and to kind of clarify a few things. And sometimes it's best, I do that all the time. So I kind of remember things wrong, or I don't remember, and they have it right there, so they can kind of clarify certain things, even on leases and whatnot. So just something that to kind of keep in mind. So in your packet, you've got a couple of meetings, starting with the February 5th meeting. I'll just go over a few items. That's the first one on my list here. The first item we had scheduled administrative reports, and that was from Alaska Permanent Capital Management Company, and they're the ones that invest the airport funds, and some of them anyway, and the city funds into a permanent fund type investment. And they, according to what they provided since inception back in 2008, the returns on the airport property has been about 7.5%. Overall, some years have been a lot better, some a little less, but 7.5 overall. And essentially, because it's like a permanent fund type thing, which you can expect to be taking out for operations this year is about $1.1 million. And so anyway, that has been quite successful. Back in the day, before 2008, the airport fund was on a trajectory like this. And by 2012, I think, or somewhere in there, we expected that we were going to be completely out of money here, and we were just spending money, but we weren't getting investment back. And investing the monies has made a huge difference where that money has grown. The fund has grown a lot. And also we have some operating monies to use. So that's worked out really well. It's not normal government to put money into a fund that actually makes interest more than like 2% or something like that. And it was quite kind of a risky thing, because if you remember 2008, well, that's when we did it, and it was in late 2008, and there was a big dip in the economy, and but it all recovered. It did well. So enough on that. Unless you have any questions specifically, we enacted the change to the land use table to allow the airport not to be a conditional use permit. Somehow that followed through, and you guys saw that too, and recommended that change to a principal use. Then we we authorized a contract for 2025 emergency services facility, and what that really is it's the fire department, and it does affect what happens here at the airport too, but the existing fire department, not the one on the airport. It's an older building. It was built in about 72, and it's getting old, and it's also getting smaller, and for the size of the city we have. So we're looking at possibility of expanding that building or building a whole new one, perhaps. And that's what this study is about, taking a look at the building. Can we go up with it, have another floor, do something? We don't have places for records and personnel and all of that. It's not as sleepy as it was here in 1972. So things have really expanded. So we put some money into a study, and without doing a study, you really can't get funds too if you're looking for grants. So that is what we were evaluating there. And let's see, we approved your 2025 work plan that you recommended to us. And that's all I have for that meeting. If anybody has any questions, we can come back to that meeting too, if you like. Then I guess is going back in reverse order. Back January 15th was the previous meeting. And we adopted authorizing city manager to enter into the restaurant concession agreement, which Derek just talked about, and is going to be happening here soon. And we adopted the city's capital improvement plan for fiscal years 26 through 2030, and that of course includes the airport. And that's all I have for that. Derek did bring up the Brown Bear project, and I don't have anything with me to show you what that may look like, but it's a bronze bear is actually a bronze female sow bear, and she has a fish in her mouth and two cubs, one sitting and one standing kind of. And that would go by the entrance into the terminal off to the left-hand side. And the committee's been working hard in getting some donations, and I understand that some monies have been, significant monies anyway, has come forward, and we're looking to get some more. It's completely a non-airport project as far as that goes. You guys said, yeah, it's fine, just as long as we're not paying for the bears. So, and that's fine. So we've got I'm on the committee too, but I'm doing it as an individual, and a kind of a liaison back to the council. But that process is continuing to work on, and I don't have the dates, but there's perhaps I can get the clerk to send out to you guys. There's some fundraising things that we're doing at the visitor center, painting fish and stuff like that, anyway, I'll try to keep you abreast on that. So hopefully that'll be something that will be constructed and installed by this fall. That's our hope and goal. Do you have anybody have any questions about the city or anything that I can help with? Paul, you look like you're just bursting at the seams. Well, you can throw it out there and I'll,
Okay, yeah.
I'll pass it on.
Yeah, this has just been something that I just been kind of kicking around in my brain here. I'm thinking because we had that meeting here for the master plan and the goals and everything, and they're, taking a look at all the potential for growth here at the airport. I look at those two people there as being basically the sole employees that manage this place. It seems like it's a lot for them now, I would assume. And it's going to be even more in the future. So I don't know how it would be, what the process would be to get a third person in on the airport staff. I don't know if that's necessary, but to me, just outside looking in, it looks like there might be room for that. Maybe, and just start thinking about that, getting a third person there.
I don't want to necessarily
No.
speak for Derek, but I think there probably are other city folks involved, our Public Works Director, and his staff, and the city manager is ultimately responsible too, and so he's, but Derek?
I would agree with that. I appreciate that, and Sarah obviously works hard as well as myself, and we do have a lot of support within the city though as well. The Public Works Director assists, Planning Department assists as well, which part of that position is funded by the airport. So we have our support there. I'm sure I'm missing people, but those are some of the major players that we do get assistance from.
Yeah, I just I saw the master plan and everything. It's all about the airport proper, but I'm really concerned about the individuals that make it happen too. So if you think it's adequate now, that's fine, but something that's just, like I said, it's just been kicking around my brain. And the other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to explore, and this is really not for the airport to do, but CAP's got a nice piece of property there. And I'd really like to see something happen with that other than it just sitting there. And I'm not sure how to make that happen. I'd like to start working through the lease and going through the stuff that made that corner property happen. And then have it more for a use for just CAP. I mean, that we have a lot more property than what we need. And I don't know if the airport could utilize it, maybe figure out something to do with the city, something to do, but that's always something that's kind of kicking around there for me, so.
And I don't know if that's an option down there or where to put it, but I think one of the biggest things that would be an improvement, as community support would be something like T hangars, or not even just T hangars, but covered hangars similar to what Soldotna has. Increased parking for this airport for GA is something that's very much lacking. And so I don't know if there's an option for CAP to provide that. And that could then go towards CAP budget of having lease space available for that. And if there's revenue opportunities there, or to turn that over to someone else to do something similar. But I think there's a lot of opportunity in some covered aircraft parking that this airport definitely lacks that space could be used for.
CAP has no money. We pay the utilities for that. I don't know if you knew that or not. We have no money. And the only money we got from, I could think, from the state during the heyday, we got $1 million a year from the state. And then it went down to zero for a couple years. And it was just through fundraising, whatever, and that's all we got. And then I don't know, what was the last one? We got 250,000 for the state, I think.
I think it was around 500, then it went
Was
down to
it?
250.
Yeah, it went up
For,
500.
for,
went
for
down to
Civil Air
250.
Patrol.
Yeah.
Paul, back to your question, unless
Yeah.
Derek had, maybe he wants, on the CAP land down there, I made sure that that was actually addressed in the land use plan, where we have all the parcels in the city. And they were looking at the airport. And I wanted that to be in there, that the city needs to look at the possibility of maybe acquiring all of that property back and then becoming the leaseholder directly, and then perhaps subdividing it. I'm going to sound like a little bit like Jim over there because I'm going to give a history lesson, and Jim was there too. The Civil Air Patrol used to be basically where the old Cars Mall is and where the bank is, in that parking lot. If you're in the new Safeway store near the self-checkout, there's a photograph, an old photograph, and you'll see a CAP aircraft on a gravel parking area and a Quonset hut there, and then the old school across the street. But that's where it was. And Safeway, Cars wasn't here yet, and they wanted it so badly. What the city did is it moved Civil Air Patrol over to where it is now. And so went from 4.5 acres there to 4.5 acres where it is. I'm just telling you guys this because you're the airport commission, so you've got that. So there went from a track day over here to a track day over there, so it gets confusing. But they wanted to lease it to the Civil Air Patrol, but it's a 501c3, and they couldn't do that. So they went to the Air Force, negotiated with the Air Force, and then the Air Force doesn't hold property. It's the Corps of Engineers. So the Corps of Engineers has the property. The lease is for Civil Air Patrol use in perpetuity, and but the Corps has it. The Corps really has no purpose of it. They just have it. We don't. CAP doesn't do it, but there it is. So the city can't use it. The CAP can. The airport can use it somewhat. There's a rotating beacon on it. That's also in the lease that they can do that for aviation, that kind of stuff, And so there it sits. So it's a process the city would have to go through and through Congress probably to have that change to bring the lease back to the city to then honor what that intent was for the Civil Air Patrol. You see, the city probably isn't going to jump on this because it's going to be a lot of rabbit holes to get there, I'm guessing. And if you've ever worked with the federal government at that level, especially today. But at any rate, that's the story as I understand it in a nutshell. But I agree with Paul. There's 4.5 acres there that's not being totally utilized and probably won't be, And by the way, if you guys wanted to build a hangar for the CAP somewhere else in a nice new facility, they would probably accept that. And then, you can have the whole 4.5 acres in an old hangar if it's more desirable down there. That's probably, I'm kidding, but I'm not. That's how CAP got to where it is because it was, and not only that, in this lease when it was moved down there, and we don't push on it or anything, but the airport is obliged to plow down our taxiway, provide that snow removal. We're much appreciative. I can't say we because I'm part of the CAP and have been since '79, but that's in the lease. Matter of fact, the city hooked up water and sewer utilities once they became available and all of that and paid for it. They paid for moving the hangar or constructing it there back in the day. So there's a lot of history there in that. But yeah, that's pretty valuable property now. It was out in the back 40 back in the day. Matter of fact, it was moved there because that's where the runway used to be. That's why there's a grass strip there and everything. That's the old runway. Anyway, Paul, did I just tell you a lot more than you wanted to know? Okay, but anyway, you guys can help work on that if you know somebody.
Okay. So you're done?
Well, I could go on.
Sorry, I asked the question. Seeing no additional public comment, I'll move on to our next meeting, March 13th. Will everybody be here? Okay. Looking for commissioners' questions and comments. What do we have?
I think my biggest question, comment, I have come to the awareness over the last week or so that the airline operating agreement for the terminal expires in June. So we will be seeing new discussions for the airlines operating in and out of the terminal facilities. I'm curious what the plans are for that, what the involvement of commission is on that, what the involvement of council is on that, what that looks like for the renewal of that airline operating agreement, because that's been in place for a number of years. I think there's definitely opportunities to improve that and open up some possibilities within that for some options for current tenants that aren't available based on current language. So just curious what the review of that looks like, what that process looks like as we come up to the expiration of that agreement here in June.
Yeah, as mentioned when we talked about this before, it's met with a consultant just to kick this off. He's been working on this airline operating agreement for a long time, and so he'll prepare an amendment. It'll come out to the airlines to review and comment, and we plan to have a report next month at the commission meeting. So barely kicked off on Friday, just getting that going, but that's where it's at.
Got it. Yeah, looking forward, both as airline and commission side on both ends of it. Looking forward to see that and be part of that discussion.
Okay, any other commissioners' comments?
Let's see, one thing that we talked about during the meeting for when the engineering firm was here in the public, I talked about the park. And you said that it wasn't usable. I looked online and it's still listed as 4th Avenue Park in the city of Kenai. And it's advertised as such.
What is park? I don't know what we're talking about.
On the south end of the float pond parking.
The camping,
The
the camping
campground
area.
location at the float pond.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, because it's labeled as such. I actually drove back there on the way here, and you can drive around. It's got these scary signs saying float operation only, whatever, but you push the button and it's like, wow, you come in, there's no, it's a secure area, but outside of the airport secure area, unless you want to swim, I suppose, or walk across some ice. And I did take a look out there. There's a couple picnic tables. There's 3 barbecues out there. There's a couple places to set up camp. So I think, and like I said on the website, the Parks and Rec website for the city of Kenai does list it as a park, and it's called 4th Avenue Park. So I'd like to keep that, as far as even if it's just for transient pilots coming in to just spend a day or two in Kenai to do that. And actually, I went to that sign, that really nice sign that was put up just before Derek was killed, unfortunately. We just had plans for benches and stuff out there, memorial type things. And I scanned the QR code, and it was supposed to be a guide to the city, and all it had was this. It's a picture of fireweed, and it says the Kenai. That's all. And there's no click on it. There's no nothing. It's just that. So it really doesn't provide any information. And I don't know if the QR code link can be changed. Yeah. I'm not familiar with that. That's one thing well out of my wheelhouse. So, and then that goes on to my next comment about the public outreach. I think that's going to be really important for us as an airport and also for the Airport Commission to be actively doing that, because from the comments that I heard from the people that were here, and, people are interested in this. They're mainly interested to say, when are we going to get more airlines in? And then the other one was, what's that?
The cost.
Yeah, the clause, and then also noise. There was a couple in the back that were talking about that, about what they're gonna do with the subdivision back over there. And I think the more that we can do, and I don't know if that's gonna be something that's even in the budget for the airport. I haven't explored it for any type of advertising or just, hey, thank you very much for being our neighbors. We want to be your neighbor. Won't you be my neighbor type thing. It's important. I mean, I'm reading all these stories from lower 48. There's some significant things going on. I'm sure as, airport manager, you're well aware of those that are just, airports are closing, airports are shrinking. This low lead fuel thing is taking on a life of its own. I think getting ahead of that wave would be good. And the only other thing is I'm always that $25 helicopter landing fee. Being an ex-military helicopter, it's like I'm being singled out because I'm a helicopter. I don't like to revisit that. And also I'll be on vacation the end of the month. So that's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, as I asked you earlier, and I think you're going to put it on the agenda for next month to talk about the camping area.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Okay, any other comments? If not, we are adjourned.
Have you heard from Tom at all?
No, I texted Larry and I told him what,
Yeah.
I told you what his response was. I said, well, I'm just still waiting on him to respond. I guess he's, putting out of the fire.